It's the Lean Tired Cast, a show where a couple visual storytellers get together, take a walk around a topic, try to look at it from every conceivable angle, think about it really hard, and then try to put all that thinking into some kind of actionable thing to do. We think hard about visual storytelling, so you will too. My name is Jersey Drost, cartoonist and teaching artist. The other fella is...
Hey, I'm Rob Stenzinger, designer, artist, facilitator. How you doing, Jersey?
I'm just this close to fighting a cold. You too, huh?
Yes, me too, actually. I took a big nap before podcasting.
Oh, that's luxury.
That's how I'm still.
Nap.
Yeah, it is.
Grown-up naps.
Grown-up-naps.com.
That almost feels like Caligula-esque decadence to me nowadays. Like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sleep for an hour, and nobody gets to stop me.
Well, you know, it's good to have things to strive for.
I'm not even on any cold medicine. Okay, so, by the way, there's nothing other about you. I got to find another way to say that. It's not the other guy. You're not the other guy. There's nothing, you know, you're co-host of the Lean Tired Cast.
Yeah, darn right. I introduced myself as that many times.
Okay.
No, that's right. Yeah, I mean, we're, this is, I mean, we kicked this off. It was, after years of your successful and fascinating podcasting. I like how you lead off the show. It's fun. It's like I get to relive all these memories of all the podcasts I've listened to of you and whatnot. It's fun. And once in a while I do it too. So it's all good, man. I love it. And hearing you like hand off a ball to me, I'm like, I don't know. I'll do something with it. I might drop it, trip over it, chuck it. Who knows?
Or you might fall down and make a spreadsheet because what's been on your mind lately, Rob? Besides fighting a cold, you've been obsessing about something. I think it's going to be this episode's topic.
Yeah, some may call it that, and some may call it overthinking, which I think doesn't exist. Just thinking, and someone else is getting judgmental about it, basically. So yeah, this is the time of year I think where it's like, hey, let's. What happened? What happened last year? Oh my gosh, I was listening to the Hidden Brain podcast, which is a gem. It's from NPR, and it's a temporal threshold or something. It's very natural for us as humans to do this kind of looking back at any kind of significant other type of date, right? Where it's like, oh, okay, this is a new year, or hey, this is a new month, or even if it's a new week, or Arbor Day, or whatever. It's like there's a milestone that pops up in your time radar, and we actually pretty naturally use that as a chance to just do a little bit of accounting. Anyway, and then I just highly I think that's episode 17 of their show called Resolutions. Anyway.
What was the show again?
The Hidden Brain.
Okay, capturing it on the whiteboard and in the show notes.
Mm-hmm. It's awesome, and so, but it's always a thing. We've made it a topic on the podcast many times, and this is it's overall a pretty natural thing in our interest. So we tend to think about it and share it and unbox our process, and we've done that here. Typically, at least one time during this time every year, we've had the show, and then we've had Dave Say on the show where he looks back. Actually, he typically holds it off until February, and he has his whole Groundhog Day process, doing a review at the second of the second month, the third of the third month, and all that. Super fun pattern, but in recent years, I was doing this whole self-interview journaling thing, facilitated through the approach that Susanna Conway offers on her website, which we've talked about her before. Yeah, really good resource.
And it was her post from was it December 2015, and the title of the blog post is "We're Coming for You 2016." We'll link to it in the show notes. It's SusannaConway.com.
So Yeah, I mean, let's see. What I'm curious, what particular? Let's see. I suppose I looked at this for many weeks. Like, I'm curious what stands out to you as a characteristic of, like, boy, Rob's really into that, or something.
Well, I mean, see, this is the funny thing. You're not going to get any argument from me. I'm converted. I've subscribed to your newsletter now, Rob, because I just got, and everybody's heard me talk about this thing ad nauseum, the Emergent Task Planner. I just got the official, David Say one from Amazon, where it's spiral bound. And boy, does this guy ever think about design? Because the paper, I mean, it's just, you don't think about it until you use it, and it's like the paper feels so good, and it works with all kinds of pens. All paper does. But until you use like really good paper, it's like, oh, that's right, he thought about this really hard. Anyway, capturing data about your life. I just posted about this on Facebook actually recently, where I was saying how I've been trying to capture qualitative data as well as quantitative data on my work days, and looking for the patterns in there. And I put like just little tiny emoji next to my accomplishments in that day as it happens. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I noticed that whenever I go over 5 hours on a page, I have a frowny face or an angry face or a judgmental face next to it, every time there's the pattern. Okay, right? Even if I'm not paying attention to it all the time, I have something to go back and reflect on. And it helps me remember the moment, and it helps me find the patterns. And that was what I noticed about the thing that we're going to talk about today, this spreadsheet that you made, which is quite amazing because it helps. We'll get to it in more detail in a second, but we're going to talk about, okay, so you've been capturing data, you've been journaling, you've been reflecting. Now, let's go in there and find all the juicy bits, and let's use, what you've done, Rob, is develop like sort of like a method of digging in and collecting that data in some kind of useful fashion, right?
Exactly. That's so I do user experience research as part of part of the services I've offered for years. And there are different techniques you have as far as surveying other folks to there's sort of templated surveys that are like industry standard, like system usability survey. There's things that like the Kano method. There's all this stuff, and it kind of is this sitting in the back of my head. And then I'm using this Susanna Conway thing, and it is a self-interview. And I thought, I kind of want this sort of way to summarize this a little bit better. I want to get my hands around all this data and find patterns more easily. And that was where I was like, well, hey, wait a minute. I should just turn this into a little bit more of a structured self-interview. And then all of a sudden what I'm doing is combing over materials I've gathered throughout the year, and I'm doing what I call an experience inventory.
And that's what we're going to dig into. And I think this is the greatest bridge line is right from your blog post at interactive-storyteller.com, where you said data nerds know that's awesome. Data whatevs know they've clicked the wrong link. Before we go there, right, we've got sponsors to acknowledge. And those sponsors are us. So let's kick off with the sponsors real quick. The first one that I want to make a mention of is This Panda Needs You, a game made by Rob. If you enjoy the stuff that Rob says on this show, and if you enjoy his thoughts on design, then you would probably get a kick out of playing a game that he wrote and designed himself. And that is at this-panda.com. And it's a block stacking game where Panda comes upon some blocks that are neatly arranged. In comes this mischievous little cloud who blows the blocks down, and you have to put the pattern back together as it was. And there's unique physics going on in this game, and it's for the iPad right now, right?
Well, actually, recently I have both I and the process that Apple uses to update its store. I got an update through the process, and it now runs on all iOS devices. I think version 8 and above. So it'll run on your iPhone, your iPad, your iPod Touch, and yeah. So if you're in that ecosystem, there's a good chance this is going to be totally ready for you to use. And that just happened also this week. And if you hear that as of this recording, I think through Saturday, it's on sale for $1.
So a couple of days after this recording, you have like 48 hours.
There you go. Normally it's like $3, so not. It's a pretty significant discount percentage wise.
And a buck, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, this-panda.com. And then the thing I want you to look at, if you want to look at something by me, if you enjoy the things I say, if you enjoy my thoughts on comic storytelling and design, then you would probably enjoy my webcomic, Boulder and Fleet Adventurers for Hire. I always start with this low-key line of, like, it's about a bear and a bird who go on adventures, but it's also probably my proudest achievement as a cartoonist. Like, the work I've done in this, I'm really, really happy with it in terms of page design, storytelling moments, sound design, color design. I really love working on this comic, and I would love for more people to read it so I can make it into a sustainable thing. Also, just because, like, when you make something that you pour your guts into, you want other people to like it too. So that's at boulderandfleet.com. If you're just here for the Lean Into Art stuff, and you just like listening to us philosophize about storytelling and design and communication, then you can get more of that stuff at leanintoart.com/workshops, and that's where you can find classes like the Comics Fundamentals series, Comic Sound Design series, Storytellers UI tools, turning jokes into comics, Laughing Yeti, Monkey Spaghetti, and making video games from your creator-owned comics. These are all video series that you can download for whatever price you feel like paying, even $0 if that's what you feel like paying, or if that's what you can afford to pay. And that's at leanintoart.com/workshops. And did I miss anything, Rob?
No. I think that that how you frame this is if you're into like what we do here, you're into sort of what we get excited about diving into and what we enjoy, then you probably would connect with our other work. I think that's
this is
really
us
great
talking
point.
the talk. Those things we just mentioned are us walking the walk, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
As they say on American Pickers.
Some new show. Neato. There's a new show called American Pickers.
It's not that new. It's a show about guys who just go around like junkyard scavenging for getting like Americana to sell in their shop. So they call it picking.
Oh, cool.
I just love
All
it when
right.
I see everybody. This is when I hit Rob's pop culture deficit blind spot, and I go, "Pata!" And then he goes, "Oh, hey." I'm smiling, but that kind of hurt.
Hey, honestly, and I love discovering that too, because I have this very rich list of material to mine of like great entertainment that other people have checked out before me. So I'm slowly actually getting to it now. I mean, it's been.
It's true. When you finish Pokemon, we have to sit down and have a whole Lean Into Art episode just about Pokemon.
I've been through season 1.
Ah.
Yeah, and it's awesome. So I'm ready.
I started watching it because of you, and oh man, I got so many thoughts that I feel like we could do a whole episode just unboxing that show. I don't know if that's a Saturday Supercast or if that's a Lean Into Art or what, but all right. Anyway, we got to talk about we got to go 10,000 feet up. Rob, are you ready to go 10,000 feet up?
Yeah, let's check this out from the high level.
Well, there's the music, and that music signifies that we're about to fly 10,000 feet up. This is the section of the show where we talk about the topic in abstract, look at it from every conceivable angle, think about it, the whys of the thing before we dig into the hows, right? So why spreadsheet your life, Rob? I'm going to pull up that spreadsheet real quick, and because I want people to feel a little daunted before we dive in.
It's yeah, you can see how I did not get this refined to its most elegant form as you go, there's so many columns. It's fair enough. And yeah, okay. So let's see.
It's not
why
that
do
much
this?
when you really look at it.
There's something that occurred to me from Daniel Pink, his book Drive, which is essentially about the motivation to work, right? And what drives people. So it's a really fun book. Highly recommend it. And he said something about how the sort of mindfulness about what motivates us and how we plan things and the kind of outcomes we get and all that. None of us have, that I know of, a team of researchers following us all day, just capturing data. Maybe that would be creepy for some folks, but like once in a while, actually, I would love that, to like really have this rich, like, all right, now you think you do this, here's what you're really doing, and how do you, jive that up. So this was a way for me to sort of become that team of researchers on my own experience. And I find that the practice of reflection can help with sort of unpacking like observations, and even if they're not really like super rich with data, you can grow the data around them by coming at it from different angles and trying to ask questions, self-interview, and pull out insights. And when you don't have them, then you can go try to find more resources to say, like, well, when did that happen? Did I write that in my calendar? Did I write that in is it an email? What? So you can sort of I did this because of, you know, like kind of like we mentioned in the intro. I enjoy the process of the journaling. I think the Susanna Conway approach is incredibly helpful. Yet the data part of it, maybe it's because of doing the UX research or something. I feel like I have like just like more evidence or something to base choices around. So I'm not just listening to what's conveniently loud in my mind. I'm seeing other ways to triangulate and point at.
Well, I don't know if it's like this for you or if it's like this for anybody beyond me, but time and my memory are funny things in that some things feel like, wow, that was a long time ago, and I'm always surprised by how recent it was. Really? That happened last year? I thought that happened like 5 years ago. Other things will feel more recent, yet will have taken place a longer period of time ago, and I'm surprised when I find that out, right? Oh, that wasn't that long ago. That was 5 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have noticed that I have an elastic sense of time sometimes, especially anything older than about 4 months ago. Like, it becomes kind of hazy and kind of, where did that happen exactly?
Or what about new stuff that comes up, and then you keep seeing that thing, right? The whole the classic of I just got in. I started researching pencils again, and now I just see all this data about pencils or whatever. And like we have these, it's cognitive biases and logical fallacies, whatever. And that one's the availability heuristic of once you start shopping for this car, you only see that car or whatever. I mean, so you're looking back in a pretty imperfect, some stuff amplified, some stuff turned down kind of way when you're remembering things.
All right, so can we talk about the experience inventory then?
Yeah. Sounds good.
Well, I wasn't saying it like that. I wasn't saying like, all right, can we finish up with this nonsense and get to the good stuff? I just meant like...
No, tell me, like, let's jump
transition.
In. Yeah.
Let's talk about what you did. And I'll pull up the blog post again. People can find it, interactive-storyteller.com, and I will link to it in the show notes. But...
So, like, which angle are you curious about? Should we, like, how to do it from the high level, or the journey? What?
Well, I'm just like wondering, about? Like, if you could walk us through what you went through in putting together this experience inventory as a modeling exercise. What was it like for Rob? Because you're the one who braved this thing first, right? Before we go on into the Forest Adventurous, I want to know what you met on the way.
Here's where what you see as an outcome is the structure of and the approach, where I was developing both the structure, well, three things. I was figuring out the structure and approach and using it at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it was inherently like, it didn't come out whole cloth like this. I mean, it was like, I wanted to have, like when you start doing sort of, human-centric research, you want to, figure out like, whether you're planning a business or trying to evolve a product or whatever, you think about like, what are the, what am I trying to learn to try to improve this thing? And that through what you're trying to learn, you can try to come up with, either questions or a hypothesis or what have you. So one thing driving this, there's almost like this shadow that looms above all of this, or it's sort of a hidden theme that all this points to. It's like trying to figure out like the, gaining insight on the stuff that I do and how it, how did I do in putting time and attention toward things that I want to continue doing, and some of my things I want to do less or stop doing? And are there things I'm noticing that I should add to the picture? So it's really to help goal planning, but then to do it in a way that is beneficial to me and those around me. And then the questions that loom with that are like, well, how do I get that sort of how do I get perspective that improves my ability to recommend my own plan of what to do next? And then I started thinking of like then because there weren't that many columns on the spreadsheet to begin with. So I was like, okay, I know I want to capture what happened and when. And then I want to, how did I feel about it? Okay, cool. That sounds good. But then I'm like, well, really, I got to start thinking about, well, how much effort did it take to do that? And so little by little over time, I ended up growing these questions that fell under themes of, well, what is the experience? And what was its effect on me? And what was its effect on the world around me or others?
And
so, yeah.
I'm whiteboarding while you talk, just to sort of show like this kind of like happenstance kind of capturing, and then how you can start to like chunk this out and box it up, right? So like what happened and when becomes what was the experience, right? And then how did I feel becomes what effect did it have on me? And you're finding this out by just sort of asking yourself questions rather than like starting with, okay, I got a blank spreadsheet, let's start columning, putting some columns in this thing, right?
And that has the ability to have me gain more insight on an individual experience as I start asking these questions. And then I get curious about new things. And then I can look at the experiences in the aggregate to see like, well, wow, across these different, how do I group these experiences? Well, that's where I came up with this other thing that sort of supports it, which is like a fresh look at how do I categorize areas of my life. And you can either make one up or, or check one out from a bajillion of different methods as far as, task planning, project planning, what have you. I think if you just start with personal, professional, that's a nice start, but then you might grow that. So I had these different labels and I was able to bucket things, and I thought, well, are there any other, buckets or meaningful ways to look at all this? And so I ended up again, like growing the what, and then growing a little bit more about how it affected me. And then I kept growing a little bit more how it affected others. And through a combination of structured labeling and quantifying. So quantifying with pretty much a Likert scale, which is a scale of 1 to 5, and invented by a gentleman named Likert. And you've probably come across these in surveys before, where it's like, do you, on a scale of 1 to 5, do you like totally do you totally hate, let's see, your shoes, or do you totally love them? And then so 3 would be they're fine, 4 would be they're really great, and then 5 would be I really, really love them, and then then going down toward the negative side too, with 2 being I really dislike them, and then number 1, strongly hate. So it's a scale. And then it makes it easy to sort of summarize, like, how are people feeling about their shoes when you have a whole lot of, people that you're polling that one question to. In this case, I am in essence asking the same question. This is where it's a little bit like, I totally off the rails, getting nerdy for essentially ethnographic research stuff, anthropological inquiry type stuff, but like the experience sampling method, where you take essentially it's almost like how let's see, people who are doing geological research are sampling the Earth, right? And finding out what's inside there. The questions are helping you find out what's inside there. Each question is a sample where you're drilling in. And anyway, it also comes from experience sampling method, just to call out another great resource. I think it was Mihai Csikszentmihalyi and his colleagues that came up with that. So anyway, if you're getting excited and nerdy about researching human behavior, including your own, those are some good things to check out. Anyway, and I could be totally like, let's see, if Mihai Csikszentmihalyi were whatever to see this, he might throw a brick through his television. I don't know, right? But my intent is good.
Right,
and if it feels like it, and I can say it was, I found it helpful to go through it. So everyone's mileage may vary. This hasn't been put through the rigor that their methods have been put through.
Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, that's a good qualification. But I mean, so I read the blog post, and I looked at the spreadsheet, and I made a copy of the spreadsheet to my Google Docs, which you can too. If you go to the link in the show notes, you can copy the spreadsheet and try it out for yourself. And again, my initial reaction to this is this is going to help me unravel that weird gelatinous sort of stretchiness of time that I experience every year, where when I try to go back and look at what happened in, say, 2015, 2014, sorting out exactly what happened where is often very tricky for me. This would make it a lot easier. Although, as somebody who doesn't journal as often as you do, Rob, I mean, I journal to the extent that I'm capturing what happens in the day, but only recently did I start capturing quality of the day, or like contextual data, right? Like, oh, I had bad sleep, woken up 7 times in the night, and I capture that little piece to like help me understand how that day kind of plays out when I'm going back and reviewing my ETP. But having only done that recently, going back and doing this for the first time, this spreadsheet, I know that this would be a big task, right? It would take a lot of effort and probably help from my wife to help me remember like when everything happened, right?
That's a really awesome point, is that people who were with you during your year, you could ask them questions about this stuff as well. And I think you have many more resources that are sort of, you're naturally generating a cloud of data probably all the time. Because I think you'll probably have your email to mine through. If you use a calendar solution, you may have that. Your file system on your computers that you make stuff, you have some information there, because you can search through things by date and search through files. And anything that sort of triggers the memory of doing a thing, and this is where it's squishy, and this is where it's not super rigorous, but it's still handy in the sort of it gathers more observations to sift through, and you will likely benefit from having more observations about your year. And so it doesn't have to be like, oh, I found this this appointment in on January 19th or whatever of 2015, and this is oh yeah, that was a big we were negotiating a big contract or something, and I was super excited, or whatever you wanted to capture. And when you capture that experience, you might end up capturing big meeting with potential client, or you might capture so I was let's see, the experience was I was proud of how prepared I was for this meeting, or the experience was, so it can be all sorts of things about that experience and how you capture it, but it's however you choose to observe that thing, and getting something captured, and whatever the source is, your fallible memory or external things or people around you. For me, I happen to have, I generate data through not infinite, perfectly continuous capture, but things I react to throughout the day. I put on note cards. I scan those note cards into Evernote. I capture articles, I capture bookmarks, I capture, you know, I make things, daily too. I, uh, let's see, I journal in day one. I use OmniFocus to track my tasks. And, so if you do any, you might go like, hey, wait a minute. That's right. I use a task tracking tool. There you go. There's another data source for you. So after hearing that, like, I mean, how do these sound to you? Do you have any other sources then?
No, you're right. I mean, my calendar is a perfect example of that because I use Google Calendar like crazy. And then even Trello, what I do is I have Trello has a calendar mode, right? So you can add tasks to different lists. You can assign due dates to your cards, and then it will show up in a calendar mode, which you can subscribe to with your Google Calendar. So in my Gcal is a tab for Trello tasks, and so that becomes a record of things that. And that's one of the reasons I did it. Is it leaves a little trail of what I've done week to week, right? But also it gives me something that on any digital device I can like quickly, without having to load the Trello app or pull up the Trello website, I can just look at my calendar and see what is ahead of me today. Because most desktop computers nowadays have some kind of like calendar thing that like it has like a Google Now card or something that says like, here's your agenda for today, right?
Wow, you just reminded me about phones, your text messages.
Oh my
You will
God.
have things that remind you of experiences. And again, you don't have to say, and then I said, and then he said, and then she said. You can just say, I had an awesome conversation. Oh my God, I was super bummed about, let's see, I was bummed about how I offended a friend in February, right? Or whatever. And it's just a thing you're reacting to, that's the experience. And then try to get more info out of it through the rest of the other observations on that experience.
So I was actually with some artists about a week ago, and this ETP thing came up. Oh, I know what it was. I remember what happened. I was teaching my youth class, and there was this rascally little kid in the room who got into my bag and pulled this out and said, and she's just being playful, but she's like, I've got Jersey's diary. She's like, I got his diary. And she runs away with it, and I come after her. I'm like, come on, give it back, And then she opens it, and very cheerfully, she's like, oh, I'm getting the juice. I'm getting the dirt on him. And she opens it up, and she sees that it's just, like, tasks, She's like, she just clearly just crushed. She thought she had all the dirt on me. But instead, she's got my grocery list, like, buy cauliflower. And, at 1:30, I felt a little tired. And I was like, well, I hate to be the one to break it to you, kid, real life. But there was another instructor in the room at the time, and they saw it, and they were like, this seems like a lot of tedium to me. And I was like, is it? Because it really helps me forge by mapping where I was, I can see where I'm, oh God, this is going to sound really cliche, Rob, but by mapping where I was, I can see where I'm going. And I can course correct more easily based on past data that I gathered, right?
Inherently it's about, I mean, there are words that have a lot of, let's see, a lot of emotion attached to them or what have you, but this is definitely sort of a mindful kind of practice. This is a way to get out of your own reflexive observation, doing, act, react kind of thing, and it's getting more planful, more thoughtful. And that can sound like a lot of work, and and for some people it's distasteful because they're like, "What? Don't you trust yourself? Why do you gotta question yourself so much, or whatever?" And let's see, the only thing I can say, because I feel like I'm able to learn in a more robust manner. So I try to notice what I could put more attention to, and then notice if I'm putting more attention to it. So it's a feedback loop.
I would also say, and I don't know if this is too on the groundy, but part of it is finding the capture method that suits your disposition. So like when I saw this spreadsheet, one of the first things I thought was, boy, I'd love to have this on a notebook. I wish this was something I could carry around and capture with a pen, because capturing journaling data digitally, for some reason, outside of doing a to-do list in Trello, does not work for me. Like, I don't think to do it that way. But carrying around a little notebook on my person that I can quickly, like in the grocery store, I can grab a thought really fast, right, with a pen. That is a natural way for me to capture ideas. Rob, seem to like effortlessly shift between both. And I got a friend actually in town that I need to introduce you to, because every time I talk to him, he's got what is that thing called? Here's another little bit of like organization porn that we can talk about on the show. These guys, right?
Oh yeah, that's
so
awesome.
I have a different one than you, but mine is the Write in the Rain all-weather writing paper note card holder, right? So it's like a little wallet that holds 3x5 index cards?
Yep.
Little pen loop here, and then it's got a hard back, so you can slide one card in there. And this friend of mine, like, no matter what you're talking about, he's got that thing out, and the pen is always going. He's like, one conversation with the guy, just a casual conversation, like over lunch, turns into like 7 index cards with this guy. I'm like, I know somebody else like that.
It does, yeah. And when you do that, it gets you get a reputation. But yeah, that's I would love to meet this guy. What would be awesome is to see what happens.
You have met him. We met him at IO, actually. He recently moved to Ann Arbor.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, I looked
with him.
All right. I look forward to reflecting on that, to remember more from that experience. Yeah. So
what's funny is it's like you're kind of poking fun at yourself, but I'm looking forward to it too. That's you get kind of you get a little bit hooked on that kind of stuff. You get hooked on outsourcing that memory so that it makes it easier for you to dig it back up and recall it, right?
And this is where it may seem seeing a large body of work can easily cause a standoffish, or you bounce off the force field of like, wow, what the heck am I seeing? And there's a lot of it. And this was done in a very, little bit tiny thing at a time, 5 minutes to an hour here and there, where I would just go through one of these sources, and I could have stopped a lot sooner, but it felt like I was learning. And so I just stayed in tune with that. And so there's a lot of gut and emotion in this process too, because, so it's not like, just outsourcing your brain to a spreadsheet. It's definitely bringing a spreadsheet in as a helper, but
I would say, like, having done a little bit of this stuff, not nearly as robustly as using that spreadsheet yet. And I heavily emphasize yet, because I have every intention of doing this. But having done a little bit of it, it's when you walk into a place and that scent hits you, and suddenly you're instantly transported back to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and it's that visceral. It's like, oh my God, I'm there again, because I smelled this. It's like, olfactory, like, memory. It tends to work really well for some reason or another.
It connects more. I believe it makes more connections in your brain. I forget what that is.
It's very similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the experience of going back and reliving these things and asking yourself, what was the quality of that moment? How did I feel about it? What happened? How did it affect other people? You're literally reliving things, which can be emotionally intense. Right?
Oh, yeah. There is that, too. So if you have big feelings about different parts of your year, you may be serving up a few more helpings of those feelings by doing this.
I'm capturing that for the whiteboard.
Yeah. But here's where, let's see. I know it's funny. If I were like this is where I'm having a difficult moment, because I'm like, if I were a better internet person, I try to be a helpful internet person, because, hi, podcast, what have you, right? I feel like I would be dumping my whole contents of my spreadsheet in front of you, but I'm not that good of an internet person. So I'm not doing that right now, right? So, but hopefully providing some general examples that get close enough to that. There's, I think everyone goes through a lot of things in a year. And and for me, like when I have experiences that maybe intensely frustrating or what have you, I process it, keep rolling, try to find the upside and what can I learn or whatever. But I do think one of the benefits of this and digging through potentially, and yes, for me, some things I was challenged by and had big feelings about that weren't all happy. Is I got a little bit more of the why and the how, and that I felt is useful because it helps me with planning what I want to do next, which includes what I don't want to do next. Inherently, like that's I'm going to find a way to emphasize the other stuff, so to de-emphasize this thing, or I really got to think about that more, and so I think I want to find books and advice and what have you on a particular topic, and it's a good way to be reminded of that through spreadsheet instead of nightmare. So that's so potential benefit. That's something I noticed. Maybe in everyone's mileage will vary with that, I imagine.
You're also talking about a kind of self-control, and I'm actually looking through an old book trying to find a passage on this. Have you ever seen this? It's a comic. It's a comic version of the Tao Te Ching.
Oh, really?
Tao Speaks.
I haven't seen that.
I had it
What?
for years. And it's the passage. I mean, because the reason I was looking for it is because it's so great to see a visualization of these concepts rather than just preach Yvonne Preacherson. But it talks about it's like we've all experienced this where it's like, why does this keep happening to me? Why does this keep happening to me? Why can't I get on top of this? And one of the principles of Taoism, to beat on that old drum, is self-control. Mastering yourself is true power, right? And then the image they show in the comic is this guy with a bottle of wine. He's like, why can't I stop drinking? Well, there's an example of it, right? Why does this keep happening to me? Well, going back and reflecting on this stuff we can't control the future. We can control ourselves, and we can make better, more informed choices in the things that we do in the future, right? So there's justification enough for this. I think we covered why. We want to.
Definitely, it's fun. It's fun to keep unboxing why. Yeah, we should keep moving though.
Yeah. So okay, I propose, Rob. Rather, you proposed, and I'm going to repropose that we model what this interview looks like when we go to the how. So if somebody's made it this far, they're leaning in, they're going like, okay, tell me more. Like, how do I do this self-interview stuff? Here's in a minute and a half, we're going to show you how to do it. We're going to walk you through it step by step so that you can take off after this episode and start self-interviewing and structuring this information and mining your own data for your own reflections. But before we go there, Rob, we got to do something important, right? I'll hit the music. Actually, you did it last time. I'll do it this time.
Okay.
So we do this thing called Patreon, right? There it is. Patreon.com/leanintoart. And this is a way, if you haven't heard of Patreon, it's basically like a Kickstarter for ongoing projects. So every month you could chip in $1, $2, whatever you think the show is worth, and that helps make the show more sustainable. And we want to thank some of the people who support us every month on Patreon. Pull up the list, actually. Here we go. Thank you to our top 5 supporters this month. Owen Jollins. He's at Comic Colorist on Twitter. That's ComicColorist. So Comic Colorist, 2 words, 2 C's in the middle. Always contributes really great thoughts to the show in the background over on the Patreon page. We have a special Patreon feed where we have an open mic night where people can talk to us directly in a safe way. And Owen's always great in there. Marshall Kocher at Marsh Makes Art. Oh, he changed it recently. Okay, that's his Twitter account. Marsh Makes Art on the Twitters. And Marshall also makes a lot. He does make art. He makes great art. Leonardo Maciel? Does that sound right to you, Rob?
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's French or Marcel or Machel. I'm not sure.
Or maybe Machel.
Cool name.
Leonardo, correct us if we're wrong on that. And there was no Twitter account to point to, but we thank you, Leonardo, for supporting the show. Kim Holm, Denungerher Holm. Boy, oh boy, I'm not going to spell it. It will be linked in the show notes. Cartoonarchy.com is his website. Terrific artist, friend of the show. Been with Leading to Art since the beginning. Dave Roman, my good buddy Dave, at Yay Time, does a comic called Star Bunny. Everybody should read it twice. You guys, your support means a lot to us. Thank you so much for helping make this show sustainable. If you feel that the show is worthwhile, and if you believe in us and the stuff that we make, we hope you will go to patreon.com/leaningtoart, where you'll find extra stuff there, the extra leans we record in between the shows, and, like we said, the open mic nights where we have an open topic forum where all of us just get together and chat. And it's all behind the paywall, so it's only people who are really invested in the project who get in there and talk, and they do talk. So thanks, everybody, for participating and supporting us. And now, ready to go on the ground, Rob?
Yeah, definitely. This is oh my, it's daunting.
It's almost like
it's daunting, but it's okay because we're prepared. We're prepared, right? Much like the capable crew of the SDF-1 when the Zentratis landed.
Oji moi.
Anyway, watch Robotech.
Parenthetical. Watch Robotech. Here comes Rob. He just hit his head on the doorway to the bridge.
Yes.
All right. So walk us through this, Rob. We're on the ground now. We explored why do this. Let's talk about how to do this.
Okay. So how to do this? One of the reasons why I shared my process and the instrument that came out of making this process. I do think you may have some rough edges or what have you, but this is a reusable thing. You don't have to go through making it and coming up with the process if you don't want to the first time. But if you do, I mean, you can tell that how this is made. It is about looking into, well, what do you want to learn from reflect this exercise.
Whoops.
And yeah, and I was wondering if I was going to get a little jam for every bullet point.
We could start doing that, Rob. I could start playing little stingers whenever you're making a really great point.
You're gonna gamify the show. Whoa. All right. So who knows? Future possibilities. But so then there's the whole. Well, maybe you're stuck. Maybe you have some of what you want to learn. And that helps you get going with capturing your data. And then you're going to be reacting to your data as you're capturing it. This is a normal part of research. And it might be tempting to try to, jump to conclusions as you're capturing. I wouldn't recommend that kind of reaction. Try to hold off on being conclusive, but your curiosity is going to help, point out what would help answer these questions that are coming up? New observations. What observations would that be? Is it about, well, wait a minute, the spreadsheet doesn't have time of day. Time of day is super important to me. Or I want to associate, pick anything like sleep or how, I don't know, how active was I during that time, or anything that you think would help your process, right? Then you would add that. That would become new columns on the spreadsheet, each column being an observation to add to the experience, which is the primary thing in that row on the far left column. And then as you're going about this, you'll probably be not totally satisfied, but satisfied enough, because you'll be like, oh, okay, I've chipped away at this. I have my questions. Or you can just get rolling with these questions and see what happens. Then there is a template. We'll have a link to this in the show notes. Jersey has it up on screen right now. And this is it's super easy to just clone this off of Google Spreadsheets. There's one other thing too. Once you have captured all your data, I have a Python file, if you're into running Python scripts, that will, if you save this from your Google Spreadsheet as an Excel file, And then you'll have to, do a little bit of editing on the Python file as far as pointing it to the right, whatever you name the file or what have you. I think I named mine experience-inventory 2015, right? But this can be then essentially my Python sheet spits out some brief reports, which I think we'll go into a little bit later.
Cool.
Yeah. And
is that when we're going to talk about pivot tables?
Yep. Yeah. I know. You didn't know
Google Docs could do pivot tables.
It can do it. If your heart's racing a little bit, that's to be expected. Yeah, it's a very visceral thing. And what questions that I used came up, like I mentioned, in sort of 3 different buckets. It was info about the experience, like here's this little thing that happened, and it's basically the what was the experience, what month, because to me the month was like the good enough chunk of time to know about when in the course of the year that happened. I didn't need to know exact dates or time of day.
And many events are usually discrete chunks of time within a month, right? So like if it was like, oh, I went to IO, well, that was in June. Oh, I went to Kids Read Comics, that was in June. Oh, I went to, Salt Lake City, that was in September, right?
Totally. And make this work for you. Try to find a consistent way to capture it, though, because like for me, I had things that spanned multiple months. So I have some of my experiences I've captured are January, but some are January through December, or June through August, or
right, like
whatever.
What did you experience doing the Lena Target cast? January
Yep.
through December.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I may want to capture different experiences about that thing.
Yep.
So then I may, do like, I tried to update my technical setup for this project, the Leaning to Artcast, right? It was really, I felt good about the experience overall, but I don't know, I don't know. I'm trying to think. Okay. Making up an example isn't that easy on the spot.
Yeah.
Because let's say that I'm thinking about how I had some mic problems this year, and that was annoying or whatever. So I might say I don't feel good about the experience, and maybe in answering more questions about that, I may think about, well, why would that be, right? So should we go through that example, or pick a different one?
Well, I just want to like hit the brakes right there just for a second, because what I'm hearing I think is an interesting thing too, and this is another like kind of mindful practice. You're not stopping on that bad feeling to go all Chris Farley and say stupid, stupid, stupid. You you see what I'm saying? Like that's that's like a huge part of mindfulness, is acknowledging the feeling, looking at it for what it is, and then moving on. And not moving on to like put it away, but more like, okay, that's the thing that happened. Let's unpack it, let's unbox it, let's think about it for a second, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you say, oh, I didn't feel good about that. That's not a judgment call. Right?
Yeah, well, and it's just a bit of information. All that is. That feeling is a piece of information. And I guess in some ways I'm so steeped into considering it as that I mean, you bring up a really good point. It's easy to somehow let that be conclusive. And now that is somewhat, this experience equals that feeling. And I guess that's inherently something that this process is to work around, or to not be stopped by, because there's a lot more about that experience than just that feeling.
It's very similar to meditation that way, right? Because that's what meditation is for a lot of people. Like depending on who you are and what reasons you do it, but like one of the things they tell you, at least in like Zen meditation, is feelings are going to happen, thoughts are going to happen. The trick is not to judge yourself for them happening, right? It is counterproductive to sit there going like, why won't these thoughts stop? The trick is not that you're emptying your mind, it's that you're letting the things wash over you without affecting you. Right?
Which is easy to underappreciate. How like people are going to have different relationships with that practice, and if you you may find some observations easier to come up with than others. And I guess that's all right. If you find that you're getting stopped, I don't know, like anything. I mean, maybe it's worth taking a break, coming back to it, and seeing how that goes. Because if the spreadsheet isn't giving you some distance from it, then maybe just taking a break will help.
And I don't think we need to use like an actual like concrete example as we go through each of these choices that you explored. I think just describing the choice. I will bet you money that most leaners will be able to fill in the blank as to, I know what one I would put there. Right?
Okay.
So if you say, okay, info about the experience, point 1, what did you do or experience? Right? Think about an event that you experienced could be any time frame from a moment to a month. I would even say maybe even a quarter, right? For those freelancers out there who have to think about what quarter did that happen under, right? That's, if you're doing measurement for that kind of reason. But keeping roughly to a day or a week is probably most useful. Everybody's got an event they can think of right now. Okay, so you listening, leaner, right now, think about that event now. Let's go through
Cool.
this together.
All right. Rob. So the event, what did you do or experience? What month did that occur? If you don't know for sure, right, just guess. And where did it take place? What life role or purpose? Yeah, go ahead.
Where did it take place? What do you mean? Like,
where did it take place? So what is a meaningful location for you? So for you, do you say in my home office, in my studio, in my at my day job, or at
the coffee shop
while traveling?
While traveling, in the parking lot, waiting for my wife to get out of work, because I do work there too. Or sometimes I work in bed. I'll be sitting in bed because I don't feel good, and I'll have the tablet on my lap. Right? Where did this happen? Can even be that precise if it's a discrete location where, right?
Yeah. And so this is going to be like you'll come up with your patterns for answering these questions. And the idea is, well, try to discover patterns. Mm-hmm. So, but don't get too hung up on it. Yeah. So, this is, so it's open-ended for you to find where, what fits, what you would describe as a location. For me, I use places like, at day job, home office, traveling, and at an event, at a local event. I think that was my common thing. So I just kind of like had these general buckets because those feel like worth significantly different enough for what it's like to go be somewhere for me.
Okay. So then what were you saying about life roles?
Yeah, life roles. This is where you'll want to come up with your own list. But I use things like personal, professional, and there's almost a hierarchy to this where I thought, well, if I have something more particular, I'm going to get specific. But it's like main gig, side gig, friends, family, finance, learning, fitness, or etc. Right?
You want to hear something? Okay, I'm going to share this with you, Rob, on the show because you might actually appreciate it. But so got these G2 pens that come in all sorts of different colors. Have you seen these?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Not particularly like awesome writing instruments, but I love the fact they come in a variety of colors because I was inspired by Trello's labeling system where you can label different aspects of your life, right? So I've got like this label's for podcasting, this label's for my own comics, this label's for freelance comics, this label's for KRC, this label's for teaching, this label's for home, and so I can color code my Trello cards. I color code my ETP entries with these pens. So this is my KRC pen. This is my freelance pen, right? And I've got orange. Orange is my personal pen. And so I track all the things. So I can also do like a squint test at my ETP to measure what life roles are being addressed in any given day.
That is awesome. So this works in an analog way too. Like journaling doesn't have to be like all whatever, blogging, day one, some kind of date app. You're working with data on paper. That's awesome. Like this.
Also, these guys work really well for that too, right? Like these pens with like multiple colors on them. And then I even went and got like this monster, which has like all the colors I use for all my labels. Right?
Whoa.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Where do you get those kind of that kind of pen?
I got this when I was in Toronto. We went to, there was like this like Japanese pop culture store, and they just had this on the shelf. And the first thing I thought was like, you could do some really interesting information organization with different color schemes, with those different colors, and it's got a cute bear on it. So, anyway, yeah, that was. So all that was to say is that, yeah, this life role purpose thing becomes a useful instrument to know where your time is going and to what purposes, right?
Totally. And this is how I use these roles as far as looking back and looking forward. So they're the buckets that I try to, when I consider like habits or whatever that I want to work on or emphasize, I think about the same list.
Yeah.
So and this is really handy. So like for one particular experience that you're thinking about, now you've captured a little more data about it. And even if you're struggling with like, I don't know if that was work or personal, maybe you have another label that helps. Likely there's a belief or a cause or a thing that is the bucket that would fit in. And then you come up with it right there. So let's see. Let's see what month, where, additional notes, life role purpose, project. Project. It's I didn't use, so not every question has to get answered on every experience. Maybe there really wasn't a project for this. Because I already said what it had to do with as far as a life role. I don't really have a project for each kid, right? Or, being a parent, or your mileage may vary, but if you're starting to distinguish among things like, oh, these are all, this is my main gig, this is my side gig, and then this had to do with this project with my side gig, and this project, whatever, you're able to now separate and within, underneath a particular grouping by doing that. And stop me any time along the way as far as reacting or questioning or digging. That's awesome.
I have no problem interrupting you, Rob. The next one I think is fascinating. You found a great way to describe it.
Sometimes trying to this is something I've struggled with, even though like I've over the course of time have had many different times where I'm comfortable with using these buckets to put, categorize and whatever, but once in a while I'm not, and or I'm there's just something missing. Like I want to label this a little bit more, with a little more purpose than the project and life role captures. Just throw in a hashtag. Then I called it topic. So if you were going to essentially give this experience a recurring theming hashtag, what would it be? So this is,
great way of putting it.
Hashtag so lucky, whatever. Hashtag
self-improvement. Hashtag house attention. Hashtag bills, paying the bills.
There you go.
Making the money,
And there you go. So it's like, it's expressive. It's just, what happens when you put that prompt to you at this experience.
Yeah.
There you go. And so that comprises the info about the experience. That's sort of like, just, that's what happened. And then you think about its effect on you. One of the big things is, on a scale of 1 to 5, how do you feel about the experience overall? 1 is very negative, 5 is very positive. How easy or difficult was it to produce? So some experiences you've got to learn a lot or adapt or what have you to bring some kind of result about. So if this is some kind of result or outcome or delivering or making something or whatever, how easy or difficult was it to produce? If it's easy, you didn't have to learn much to produce it. Maybe there's not a lot of friction. But if it's difficult, then you had to invest a lot somehow. maybe it's learning a bunch or whatever. Sometimes you get a new gig and there's just new stuff to learn to live up to the commitments, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And,
or it takes a greater time investment in order to be able to do it effectively. And even if it's not a learning thing, but more of like a practice thing. Like I think of like taking up an exercise regimen or something like that, where it's like those first couple times you do it, you're like, oh, this was really hard, and it doesn't start feeling like you can do it well until like the 10th or 20th time you've done it, right?
And here's something interesting is that now as you explore your experiences, as you gather more, or even just this one experience, you may notice that, well, I feel bad about it, but it was easy to do, or I feel great about it, but it was super hard, right?
Yeah.
And so to get the whole positive negative scale consistent, I actually put it so one is the negative, and it's tough. Like, is it negative or not? I picked one where I had difficult is a 1 and very easy is a 5. Where, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I question the question, but I questioned the scale of the question with that. But it's, you got to pick something and just keep moving. So that's where I landed on that. And then how much effort did it take to produce? Like, take a rough guess. Did you spend an hour on this? So in hours, is it 1? Is it 0.5? Is it 100? Is it, 2,000? 2,000 would be, I think, like it's between 1,800 and 2,000. That's roughly 40 hours a week.
Okay.
Whole year. Maybe with some time off, I forget. But easy math thing to figure out. Where like if you're trying to rough guess, I mean, you've got some. Like how long is your work day? Did it take 1 work day? 3?
Yeah.
Throw something in there based on that.
Yep.
Then how much did it cost you monetarily? Put a number in there. This is part of its effect on you. It's affecting your finances, right? To bring this experience about.
Oh, we skipped over how do you feel about the effort?
Oh, darn. There you go. Yep. One more scale of 1 to 5. Do you, so the effort, you may feel like the experience was pretty good. You may have had a difficult time with the, to producing of it, but you may feel how do you feel about the effort in particular? Maybe you don't like the experience, but maybe you liked working hard.
Yeah. I just did this with my adult comics class, and I don't remember where I picked this up from. I saw this someplace where somebody does this method of how do you feel about what's going on today, right? Was it you who taught me this one, Rob? Like,
oh yeah, boop boop boop. Yep, that's the 3. Because up or down is too. It's hard to get a temperature of that. It's super harsh. Yeah. But adding that middle one, I get a lot more participation in groups.
So what I'm doing for those who are listening to the audio is I'm holding out my arm and with like my thumb extended. So like you can do thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down to rate the day. And so I asked the class, and I do this check-in with them regularly because these are adults learning Manga Studio for the first time, right? And we know that learning new software is intense. This isn't the kind of thing where I can say like, well, just draw sloppy, right? Because like there's a right way and a wrong way to use certain tools in software, right? And you can discover neat new tricks, but for the most part, it's like, why isn't it doing what I want it to do? Whereas getting a pencil to put lines on paper, anybody can do that, right? The interface doesn't get in the way. So, at the end of class, I say to them, like, okay, how are we feeling today about this whole Manga Studio thing? We're here. Where are we? And they say, I'm here for the effort. And I point their thumbs down, like, but I'm here for the class, right? Like, they love the class, but they feel like the effort's not paying off yet. Like, they're frustrated as all heck, but they love what they're doing, right? So those can be different things, right? You can have different measurements on that. That's all I wanted to interrupt with. Sorry.
No, that's a really good way to paint a distinction there. It's again, getting more observation, getting more information out of that one experience, or adding it to it if it wasn't there before. Of like, well, wait, I hadn't thought about that. Well, now you're self-interviewing. Ask yourself how you feel about it.
Now, how much did it cost to do?
Yeah. Again, doesn't have to be precise. You're not doing your taxes here, but throw a number in there if it makes sense. So, let's see. doing, yeah, I don't know, like having a habit of eating lunch out every day, or having a whatever.
Or taking
Just,
a class, right? These people are taking this manga studio
there you go.
class. That costs money. Taking up an exercise regimen. You got to buy equipment, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much
Totally
does it cost you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of costs that are incurred from taking on a new thing.
Exactly. Or you may not have, or there may be some there, if it's not a lot, that you just hadn't thought about before. I guess that does cost a little bit, in particular. So it's and when you capture it, now you have the chance to compare it among other things. So then the other thing, last thing as far as its effect on you, or yeah, how much did you earn? So there's the outgoing money, and then this is the incoming money. So that's going to apply that'll make a lot of sense for tasks you're doing professionally, but not a lot of sense for things you're doing for your family, probably.
Oh, Rob, you are a cold-hearted miser, only thinking about the bottom line. Oh, wait, the next field is
exactly, money. But then I go, wait a minute, it's not all about me; it's about the world around me too. So when I do a thing, well, and this is okay. Here's the straight up, like, this is a topic we've explored a lot on Lean Into Art. It's like when you make something, you put it in the world. How are people engaging with it or not? And here you go. Here's a nice way to take that sort of that lens on, like, well, what are the outcomes of this for other people? What's its effect on others? Did making this, they're doing this, did this experience help you connect with other people? Yes or no? That's the only, I think that's the only yes or no question in the whole thing. What was others' reaction to it? And this is another chance for you to come up with your own bucket of descriptions, or one single word, or, combining single words. Like when I was answering this, I found that I came up with things like conversation, celebration, gratitude, purchasing, right? So people saw this and then they bought it, or they, a lot of people saw it and said they liked it, right? That kind of thing.
Oh, that's great. A nice one-word summary of the interaction. That's great. Or reaction, I should say.
Yep. And then next, how much reaction was there overall? And this is a very summarized perspective. Like maybe you pushed something out on the internet. Maybe you had a tweet that had a ton of engagement and people retweeting or whatever. Maybe you did an article that people reacted to, or a comic that, who knows? But this is whatever way you've measured it before, it's somehow translated to this scale of 1 to 5. 1 is no reaction, or almost none, whatever. 2 is little reaction. 3 is some reaction. Where it's implied that if you're putting a 3, maybe you're somewhat satisfied with, you got some reaction out of it, right? And it was coming from the outside. People were reacting to it. 4 is there was a good amount of reaction to that, and then 5 is incredible amount of reaction.
This one blew up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the next, what was the result of the reaction? Then was it? Let's see. There was we learned something, networked, and this is a little bit about you and the outside world, where I did actually meet someone really, really interesting that I want to collaborate with, or whatever. Right. Just, paying the bills, whatever, made some money, or
landed a gig.
Yeah. So what was the result of their reaction? Mm-hmm. So that's definitely a little bit about both you and the outside world. But then, why did you take part of this experience to make it happen? Was it is it because you just believe in it? And is it because, so this is I was questioning like the grouping of this question, but like why did you share this with experience?
Right.
Why'd you go about this?
Why do I teach comics courses? Right. Money, and because I want to help kids. Right.
There you go. That's an awesome example. So, who as a group did you connect with. And was that, so you could just sort of name an audience. It was, is there an aggregate audience, or did it just help you connect with an individual? Because next, very much related to that, maybe it was like, hey, I went to a community meetup and I got to connect with the local game development community.
Oh yeah, this is a great example.
But then individually, go ahead.
So like when I think of these two, who as a group did you connect with, and who individually did you connect with? Every year there's an event in Michigan called Nerd Camp, which is an education conference. And yes, I have a strong belief in education. I don't have that sharply direct of a connection with it because I'm not, like a licensed accredited teacher, right? I'm a teaching artist. I introduce myself that way because I don't have a teaching certificate. So I'm kind of in that world and kind of not, but I go there to connect with the larger world of educators and librarians, right? To make myself available as a resource to them and to learn from them. What are their concerns? What are their struggles, and so on. At these events, I often meet specific educators who something about the way we talk about the topic or what we're interested in resonates, and suddenly we have a connection beyond that conference. Right? I also go to local Ann Arbor conferences where it's not about art at all necessarily. It's just about like community concerns, and I meet other people in the community who have similar concerns because of our location. Right? This is a geographical kind of connection that I make with this person, and the two of us say, we should put our talents together to do X for the community. Right? So yes, you can connect with larger constituencies, even if they're not directly related to what you bucket yourself in as a career. And you can meet individuals within those constituencies, right?
Exactly. And that, again, when you make and end up finding some interesting trends when you keep capturing and whatnot, or you may find like, wow, I just meet a variety of people. Whatever you find out, hopefully, again, this is one of the asking the question, gathering the observations, see what emerges from all the data you gather. And then after the who did you connect with individually, let's see. That's right. That's it. That's funny. So we're looking at the spreadsheet and the whatever. I grouped the questions a little bit differently. So I'm pretty sure, by the way, I would edit I would do what was the result of the reaction. I don't know. I'm torn. There's almost like a different bridge, the iterating on this. This draft is useful. This is the one I've worked with, and it helped me summarize, get the data and summarize the year and stuff. But, guarantee this is going to evolve, maybe for all of us. Anyone who uses this, I would love to hear how people change it and stuff. But
you'll be hearing from me.
Awesome. And okay, there you go. So you've got all these. You've captured this for one experience. Now continue on. You might capture a list of experiences and then chip away at answering the questions, or answer one question for a bunch of experiences, and then just sort of, little by little, work your way through this grid.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is not a linear thing, right? Memory doesn't work that way. You don't have to hit the rewind button on your life to get back to 5th grade, right? You just go there. And it's the same thing with writing. Like I tell my students, Jack Kirby would start his stories sometimes in the middle because that's the most interesting part that day. Like this idea that you have to start on page 1 and progress forward linearly is not true. And it's the same thing with this. You can zigzag all over the place.
There's okay. So now, what do you think? Should we talk about capturing the insights?
Well, let's talk about how do we use it? Okay, got all this stuff in here.
Yeah.
How do we use it?
Okay, so you've now interviewed yourself. You're like, okay, I think I have perspective on 2015 or last month or last week or whatever, right? Some chunk of time, gathered the experiences and some observations. How do you get data out of this thing? And there's you are in a data slicing and dicing tool. You're in a spreadsheet right now. So depending on your comfort with using spreadsheet, you could just start playing with the data with doing pivot tables. A pivot table is a big. It's it can seem daunting, but it's something that you can actually play with to see how it goes. And what it's trying to do is just automatically summarize. So it's really trying to do a bunch of work for you. And if there's no data in here, we're not going to have like pivot tables would be like probably a whole podcast, right? But the idea here is know that the pivot table is trying to do work for you. And all you do is you would hit, Command A or Control A, select the whole spreadsheet. And then I think you would go into data and then say make pivot table, right? And depending on your tool, so Google Spreadsheets does this, Microsoft Excel does this. I think a lot of other tools do it. I haven't found a way to do it in Numbers and Apple's Numbers. Oh. So not in the latest version, at least. I don't know what's going on with that, but because it is a pretty commonly, it's a common feature. And then what the pivot table does, it tries to just summarize this along different things. And what you get to do is you drag and drop the names of these columns of these are the numbers. I want you to just sum these, add these up. And this is I want to know, I want to do what month, how I felt, and what life role, right? Life system. And then maybe after that, then I'll add what I experienced. So there you go. I have a summary in a pivot table. You could stop there. You could go wild and start making charts and stuff if you wanted, because it's a spreadsheet and that's what they do. However, there's let's say, pivot tables. That's crazy. That's too much. You can just click on one column in the spreadsheet and filter it. You can say, what did I feel the best about? So everything. I'm going to go to column E as it is in this current layout, right? And I'm going to say, I'm going to click on the column header or the E, and then click filter, or I'm going to go to the data menu and filter or whatever, depending on whatever your app is. So anyway, the filter, you'd be like, okay, only show me things with a 1 or a 5 or a 3 or you can even do a range as far as a range of values. But again, all you do is you can click on a column, filter it, and then now you've got this bucket of things that you felt the best about or the worst about pretty instantly.
Right here. Yeah, so it'll just show me, it'll highlight just this range that I've selected here as I've done a temporary filter on this.
And that just showing and hiding, think of it as that, is that could be it. Maybe you don't need any more reporting right there. There is, you can go further. You could import, there are, there are free tools like SQLite. SQLite it's a tabular database app that lets you go nuts making pretty much any kind of database you want. It's free.
Is it SQLite?
Yeah, SQLite. And Lite, yeah, there you go. And there are tools that sort of wrap SQLite and give you a visual environment. Things like there's a tool called Base, BASE for Mac. That's what I use. And so when you're there, if you're comfortable with the SQL, because SQL was invented, I think, in the 70s, early 80s, with the intent to make it so anyone who's not a programmer can play with data. I do think it's a little more obtuse than maybe that intent, but it's not too bad once you start digging into it. So you could be, once you have this, you can do crazy stuff to be like, that filter looks like a wimp compared to the power you have now with the SQL, right? You could be like, well, show me all of the, show me all of the experiences that were both that I felt negative about the experience but positive about the effort. And so all of a sudden I've got multiple columns, and it's easy to do that, like multiple column filtering. And then you can do group bys and sums and all sorts of crazy cool stuff. That what's neat is, even if SQL's daunting overall, the since you're only dealing with kind of like one chunk of data or one table, right? It doesn't get that complicated overall. but things get way more complicated if you're in, relational databases. That gets, but it's awesome too. Maybe you want to go there. Anyway, all that said, I also put out I'll have to get this link into the show notes, a Python script that will essentially chew through your spreadsheet and spit out a few other spreadsheets that are essentially like little filtered versions of this. Then it's not linked in the article.
Okay.
I produced it pretty much finished it just before the podcast. So and so what it will do is it'll spit out essentially three reports. It'll spit out four. The best stuff. It's basically the queries I describe in the article, where it's like I call it the best stuff report, the worst stuff report, and then the meh stuff report. And then the fourth one is the day job report. So if you have so you would have to edit this script because maybe your labels are different or whatever. But just by changing a couple of pieces of text, it could summarize your stuff too. Or if you use the same exact labels I use, then it'll just do it out of the box. And and so now you have just these 4 small spreadsheets that are less daunting than maybe your one big collection of stuff.
Wow. So this really is like having a team of researchers following you around. I mean, there's some front-end work on your part, but in the end, you get a bunch of people with clipboards walking into your office saying, here's what your life looks like so far.
A little bit, yeah. And again, like, boy, I can get how that may sound not so great, and maybe I'm doing a good job selling it, maybe not. My intent isn't to just try to bowl people over with it's all magical and we'll do all the work for you. It's a lot of work, but it doesn't have. It really depends on how you go about it.
Yeah.
Like, I hope to do this more frequently than once a year.
Well, I think that goes into some of your closing thoughts on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But are there any other thoughts on capturing insights that we want to touch on before we start to button this guy up?
Well, once you've done that, once you captured the data, you've done some filtering, now it's your chance to just take a look at it in its groups, right? Where now you've got your highs and your lows, or you just clicked on the column and you filtered it to get your own sort of filtered view. And what does it say to you now? Like, what pops out, and how do you feel about that? Are there any sort of themes or any kind of trends of like particular highs or lows related to any life role? What does that do?
Like, as an example, and this is not using your spreadsheet yet, but just again ETPing it, looking for patterns. I discovered that when my workday usually starts around the 9 to 10 o'clock time slot. And it'll be like I just hit the ground running, and I'm usually doing like some kind of intense task until about 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock without fail. So like about 4 to 5 hours in, I find myself getting some kind of like I need to get away from the desk for some reason. I invariably find myself, I'm doing internet browsing, or I'm eating lunch, or like there's something that's taking me away from the work at 2 o'clock. So that observation, my mind needs something else at that time. So I instituted, that's when exercise happens, right? Exercise goes at the 5-hour mark. And whether or not I see it coming that I need that, I've structured it in as a reaction to the patterns that I detected through capturing and journaling, right?
Yeah, that's so noticing the pattern.
Yeah.
Right? It becomes easier if you've done some kind of capturing. And if you've done it in some kind of format, that makes it easy to get observations.
Right.
So it's like some parts, there's a lot of work. It depends on how you engage with it, if it feels like it's terrible or not. And that's but inherently you're going to be able to make observations because of how you've been capturing it. Let's see.
And make more informed choices about how you fine-tune and optimize, right? And this isn't about like getting to yourself some kind of like Borg state of perfection, but it's more like just doing things more effectively so that you feel better about it.
Yeah, like whatever the other reactions you have as far as digging through all these experiences and how that feels, there's if you can find a way to be comfortable with, just once you have that, it's just a tool. It's just the thing. Like it doesn't mean like anything on its own until you look at it and decide what it means.
I think that's a perfect way to close on that. So
cool.
Okay, we're going to have some final thoughts on the topic in about 30 seconds. But before we go there, this is the part of the show where I say, if you enjoyed listening to this, if you like the way we think about this kind of stuff, and we front-ended with all these different ways you can support us monetarily or by getting things that we make, this is the free part. Like if you just want to thank us in a free way, a great way you can do it is by going to iTunes and giving the show a star review, however many stars you think we deserve. Also, writing a review is super nice too. We appreciate that, but just whatever you got time for, that helps more people find the show. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, giving the video a thumbs up, that helps more people find the show as well. Or going to your own social media platforms and just saying, like, hey, this is a neat thing. Telling your friends about it is a great way to help support the thing, and it doesn't cost you anything except a little bit of time. So with that, I will turn to you, Rob, and say, closing thoughts on this.
So I want to admit that when I dove through this data, and I don't know if it was just the dive or coming up with the method and doing the data dive at the same time, right? Because I don't think it's going to be as hard. That's my guess as far as if I do this. Well, I intend to do this in March again, and like even at the end of the year, looking back, because I have this approach, I will iterate on it. Hopefully, that'll take some of the effort out of the whole process to not be making the process while using it anyway. But it was a lot of work. And part of it just like the gosh, there's got to be an example. I mean, I suppose Spock mind melding with somebody and getting a big blast of feeling and memory, right? I don't have a particular, example of that. I just, I've seen Star Trek. Yeah. I haven't memorized it, but like there's it is intense. It's a lot to feel a year again.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's important to admit that. So, yeah, maybe doing it more often will help. And
we will find out in 2016. Yeah. One of the things to look forward to.
Then I think I do recommend, like, and this might be bad because if you wanted like this easy pattern, I don't have that. I guess I have the structured interview. How you would go about interviewing yourself. Try to notice if you're getting fatigued, and take a break. I did this process over the course. Honestly, the bulk of it was done in 2 weeks, right? But it wasn't like 8 hours a day or whatever. It was chunks of time here and there, 5 minutes to 2 hours roughly, typically. And it doesn't have to just take 2 weeks. You could take longer. There's ways to sort of lower the cost of doing this kind of reflection.
Well, I like that you say in the notes, you said like, just capture some things about the past week. There's a place to start. Right? Let's start with a small range. Let's just do this week. And I could see this being something where it's just a tab I have open during the day, and this is a break time moment. Break time things. Like there's like certain things like as a freelancer that I do as breaks. Like for instance, like photographing and cataloging my receipts for tax season. That's a break time activity.
That is a business person break time.
It is. It's like I keep them in my wallet all week, and then they go on my desk during the weekday, and it's like, okay, if I need to get away from just the computer for a second, break out my phone, break out Expensify, and snap, enter, snap, enter, snap, enter. Okay, I can go back to work now. I did something different with my brain for a second, you know. This could be one of those things that I have sort of like queued up.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I guess what is that, constructive procrastination, where you you take your mind off one task by doing a different task. Cool. Yep. It's So, and this is just to share. I'm just to share some numbers, for example, right? What I ended up gathering, I feel like I could have done more, but I don't know. Maybe it was too much or whatever. I gathered only 240 examples for the year, right? 240 experiences. So that's, rows in the list or whatever. But you think, well, what the heck, Rob? There's like 365 days. You didn't experience stuff some days? Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of these experiences span days and whatever. I don't know. Like there's a lot of differentiation. There's a lot of overlap here and there. But I don't know what to say. It felt right. 240.
Those are the notable experiences, to use Wikipedia language.
Hey, there you go. It passed my censors. Anyway, that does lead to a lot of data points too, because you 240 times, I think whatever 19 observations per experience, that ends up adding up to a lot. But it felt good enough where I'm like, wow, neat. I feel more in touch with what happened this year, and now I want to tell the world about the process.
And again, the blog post is at interactive-storyteller.com, and that's where you can get the spreadsheet. You can copy it to your Google Drive, and I assume download it too if you want to work on it on your local machine.
Yeah, you can do. You just go to the file menu and in the Google spreadsheet, you'll be able to download it.
Cool. Well, Rob, thank you so much for putting yourself through that so that we can all benefit from the processed end.
Totally welcome. And as a call to action, please do download it, but also share your reactions. Hit me up however you feel comfortable. Twitter's awesome, but you can hit me up via email to rob.stenzinger@stenzingersoftware.com.
No, I'm looking forward to doing a few entries and seeing and giving you my reactions. And I'd love to hear what the leaners, how they encounter it as well.
All right, man. Thanks for exploring that with me. And, it's hard to not feel self-conscious when you do that much analysis and then share the process of doing that analysis and wondering, what will people do when they what will people do? But overall, you seem to
I'm excited about it.
Find something interesting here. So
yeah, no, I'm very excited about it. Like I said, this is a direction I've been heading in slowly for some time in my own sloppy way. This is going to be a great way to structure it and help me. I can already predict that it's going to help with my memory retention. Right? That alone is a benefit I'm going to get from this, but I also know that I'm going to get a better picture of what I've been doing and why. Right? And watching those reasons change.
Oh my God. One of the huge things, for me, speaking of memory retention, is going back through and going yeah, I did meet a certain person at that event and I don't remember the name, but I know how I can hunt through all this stuff and find out who they were and be like, that was great. And I want to, reach out, say hi or whatever. That alone was worth this adventure.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for taking a walk around that with me, Rob. And
cool.
That was more than a walk. That was a marathon.
All right.
Awesome.
Welcome.
All right. And everybody, thank you for downloading, watching, and listening. The show will be back in 2 weeks. If you cannot wait to hear us again, you can go to patreon.com/leanintoart, and that's where we post the extra leans, the shows we record in between the shows. And it's an unstructured, fun little riffing that we do. It's storytelling philosophy jazz. Think of it like that. Rob breaks out the bass guitar, I break out the trombone, and we just sort of feed off of each other and see what we come up with. And sometimes it's cacophony, sometimes it's beautiful harmony. That's part of the fun. It's a little bit like gambling, listening to Extra Lean. There, we just came with the tagline. Gambling jazz, Visual storytelling philosophy. All right.
And you don't lose your money.
You don't, well, unless
Or
want
if you
to support
do,
some
it's
Patreon.
well invested. You can invest your money instead of losing your money. Hey.
I like that better. All right. We'll be back in 2 weeks then. Until then, I have been Jersey Drozd of leanintoart.com and Jersey on Twitter.
And I've been Rob Stenzinger of leanintoart.com and Rob Stenzinger on Twitter.
Okay, bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at leanintoart.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at the user leanintoart, and you can reach us via email at leanintoart@gmail.com. And remember, leaners aren't wieners. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for watching, everybody. I had the wrong title card up at the end, Rob.
My mind was blank, and I was like, I didn't even think about it. But it's all good. I was like, wow,
we're just
title
both so
card.
spent from like just the brain dump of it all, and it's like, oh, let's put a title card up. I don't care.
Oh my god! Hey, it's a title card. Jersey
Should have
good
been
at
this
that.
one, everybody. Should have been this one. Okay, we're gonna kill the stream. Thanks for hanging out and watching. Good
Cool.
night,
Thank
everybody.
you. Good night.